Oh, can we start?
We are here.
Yes, from our side, we are ready.
Okay, so good morning everyone. And my name is Gilad Cieli. I'm the director of the Economic Department Europe. And we're about to start the economic consultations, bilateral economic consultations. In the coming 3 hours, we're going to discuss the COVID-19 confrontation and the FDI, NGEU, innovation, and economic diplomacy. On our side here in this room is Mrs. Yael Rabia Tzadok, Deputy Director General for Economic Affairs. We have in Vilna our Ambassador, His Excellency Yossi Levy. We have with us also Ilan Flus, Deputy Head of the Economic Division. He'll speak about the COVID-19. And we have Neta Gruber-Peri from the Institute of Innovation, Israel Innovation Authority. And we have Eyal Eliezer from the Ministry of Economy, Director of Investments Department. And from the Embassy in Vilnius, we have Mrs. Adi Cohen Khazanov, Deputy Ambassador, and Mr. Konstantin Khazanov. Before we start, I'll pass you the microphone, Vilnius, and then our Deputy Director General will say a few opening remarks. We have a very stretched timetable, so please, all of you have the agenda. So if you can keep in line, and a minute before time is over, I'll be a very rigorous timekeeper. So we'll start. Please, thank you. Dalia, it's yours.
Thank you so much for your introductory remarks. So really pleased that we can meet virtually today together. Of course, it's a pity that we cannot meet in person in a normal way as we used to do, but yet pandemic conditions does not allow us to do it. Let's continue talking on virtual platforms. So from our side, I will briefly present my colleagues here in this room in Vilnius. I have here my colleagues, Mrs. Sandra Brikaitė, who is head of Export and Investment Promotion Division. Then Mrs. Jurgita Laurinėnaitė, third secretary of the same division. And on the other side, we have also our embassy, Mrs. Lina Antanavičienė, our ambassador of Lithuania to Israel. Lina, you are here, you can show yourself.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know just why you don't see me.
I don't see you, but that's important that we can hear you. And we also have Mr. Arūnas Karlonas, our commercial attaché at the Embassy of Lithuania to Israel. And we also have virtually connected Ms. Gabrielė Klimaitė-Želvienė, Counselor, Middle East and Africa Division, our political desk officer for Israel. So it's our team from Lithuanian side, and really happy to see you today and to talk on our bilateral economic agenda. And just to tell you that Israel is our important partner in various aspects, including, of course, economic cooperation, economic relations, and yet our figures of our bilateral economic agenda are not impressive. We agree on, probably all of us agree, which means that in this respect, there is still a great potential for deepening, for encouraging our cooperation. And talking on these priority areas of economic cooperation, I would say that it's really obvious that we will not reach trade turnover to the extent putting our countries among the top trading partner list. It's geographically and historically and due to many aspects. But taking into account the competitive advantages of our both countries, I would think that the biggest potential lies in focusing our economic agenda on science, technology, and innovation, on so-called innovative sectors. And I think that we should make our efforts on strengthening already existing our economic cooperation. We are not starting from zero, and building a new mutually beneficial business partnerships in several sectors. And here I would name life sciences, laser technologies, ICT, with a special focus on cybersecurity, fintech, and of course, strengthening cooperation on science, technology, and innovation area, exploring research and development, as well as cooperation between science and education institutions, especially taking into account COVID-related challenges. And of course, Lithuania has an objective to attract as much as possible FDIs, and in this respect, we are also looking forward to cooperate with Israel and to attract more FDIs into Lithuania. And a bit later, I'll talk on how we are making efforts to make investment environment in Lithuania even better than we have for the time being. So that would be my short introductory remarks. And if you would like to add something, please, and then we can go through the agenda.
Thank you very much, Dalia. To our both ambassadors, good morning. And I would like to congratulate all those who are present this morning on the screen and took part in preparing this meeting. I'm Yael Ravia Tzadok, Deputy Director General for Economic Affairs, and I'm glad to launch this dialogue. I have very high expectations from this meeting, even though it's short and virtual, unfortunately. I think this is a great opportunity for both sides to learn more and to identify potential areas for further collaboration. If we look at the trade between our countries, it grew in the last decade significantly, but still there is a lot more that can be done and should be done, not only to expand the volume, but also to diversify to new branches of trade. With us today, Innovation Authority and the Ministry of Economy from the Israeli side, as well as my deputy Ilan Flus. It is important, I think, that we will try to, when we conclude this session, to come out with at least 3 action items to follow up. One of the things that I ask myself, one of the questions is, what are the barriers to further growth in trade and economical collaboration, which means not only trade, but far beyond frameworks for collaboration on research, innovation. I definitely would like to, when we conclude this session, to have a roadmap to next stages. The 2020 was a very distorted year to all of us. We found ourselves in the economic division leading national efforts related to COVID, whether it is chain supply of products, chain supply of medical equipment, raw material for the laboratories that were so busy this year, and also the world of aviation. Aviation as an engine for the economy, for relaunching the economic activity globally. And all those efforts and more were in the heart of our day and night in 2020. And definitely this is an area where I think a lot of valued experience can be exchanged. And with this on the table, this is the opening and warming up comments to Ilan Flus' presentation, but we will first go to our ambassadors. Yossi, please. Yossi, unmute. You should unmute yourself.
So I will start again. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very happy to join this very important session. Good morning, friends from Lithuania and from Israel. We have a slight technical problem on my screen, but I don't see you, but pretend as if I see you all. So we are good friends, Israel and Lithuania. We have great cooperation in many fields. In politics, in culture, we have a very impressive and a very deep historical legacy to cherish together. But economy has another language and other rules. And I do believe, as Dalia said before, as Yael said just now, we should be realistic. We are not neighbors. Both economies are not very big. We are not located very near Lithuania, and the economy, the commerce has its own logistic, its own logic, but still, even though there is a low glass limit, we did not reach it yet. And the numbers that we have now, which approximately 100 to 110 million dollars from both sides, doesn't really exceed the potential that we do share. And as Dalia said very rightly, I do believe that the engine in our economies is the human factor, the free thought, the startups, the innovation, those niche domains in which we are both very good. And we should try to find a mechanism of screening to find the good and the real matching points between our economies. Do you hear me? Because I see a black screen in front of me now.
Yes.
We do
Oh,
hear
good.
you very well.
Oh, that's great.
We do.
Yeah, we are, you know, speaking about high tech, that's the high tech we have. So our mission really is to try to break those limit of very small commerce numbers and try to find the right mechanism to have a very successful match between the Israeli potential, which is very impressive, and the Lithuanian potential, which is amazing. Lithuania is very good in its human factor, as we are. So those human laboratories, the accelerators, the free thought, the innovation, the biotech. We have here a general consul here, Mr. Vladas Bumelis, who is actually running various companies which are focusing on biotech and smart inventions in medicine and in other fields. So I think there is much to do, and I will be very much pleased if we will find a way to translate the intentions, the internal wishes we have into deeds, to have a good match between companies. That is something which is really doable, and I'm sure that we will be able to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yossi, and we'll move to the Lithuanian Ambassador to Israel, Her Excellency, Mrs. Lina Antanavienchi. Please.
Yeah, so thank you very much. The situation, you don't hear me?
We can hear you, but we don't see you.
That's the situation opposite as Yossi has. I see you all perfectly and I hear you all. I'm waiting for my colleague to come. Maybe we will fix the situation and you will see me as well. So first of all, good morning to everyone. I'm so happy that we have this event today because the idea came, I think, nearly 1 year ago when we met with Ambassador Yael and we discussed that it would be perhaps nice to meet for all of us, both teams of economic diplomats in Israeli side and in Lithuanian side. Definitely, we hoped to have it a bit different, kind of in a live version, but situation with COVID doesn't allow us to do it this year. I'm really sure that next year we can do it in a right way. It's actually difficult to add because all of you, those who talked, Dalia, Yael, and Yossi, you told very right things that although we do have very nice cooperation in all sectors, when it comes to economy, we can do much more. And from my side, I can assure you that we will try to do as much as possible. COVID perhaps is not a friend of us in this a challenge, but on the other hand, I think we needed to see it in a positive way as well, because it gives us more ideas on cooperation and push us to find new ways of cooperation. So definitely now we reached this small target of ours of 100 million euros of our trade. I hope it will go up, and different sectors, new sectors of cooperation will be as well on the list in between our two countries. And as always say, the mission of mine is to see Lithuania and Israel is not just cooperating, but co-creating. So that's what we need to achieve at the end of the day, that we are partners who work together and who co-create. So perhaps here I will stop and we can start our meeting, going to the content of it. Thank you once again, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And now Ilan Flus will take the floor to speak about the COVID. We have about 15 minutes. Thank you, Ilan.
Thank you very much, Gil, and thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you today at this first economic consultations between Lithuania and Israel. I'll try and be brief, and if there are specific questions, I will be happy to respond. I'll open with the issue of what is known as a passport, or what we call here as mutual recognition of the vaccination certificate. This is an issue which is important. We see a lot of importance in the issue of vaccination in combating COVID-19. Israel is enjoying the benefit of a big part of the population which is already vaccinated, and it's becoming safer to try and use the vaccination for opening up the economy. And you're aware of the green tag in Israel and slowly reopening restaurants and public activities. What we're trying to do these days is to integrate the issue of vaccination into the protocols which will allow people to enter into a country without going into quarantine. This is the purpose of the issue of mutual recognition. A person which will have a valid and an authenticated document which proves that he was vaccinated by recognized vaccines would be able to enter Israel without going into quarantine upon entry. So we're not replacing the rules of who can enter Israel. And meantime, Israel is still remaining closed to foreigners, except for special permits of the COVID-19. But we hope that we'll start opening up in a couple of months' time. It really depends on Ministry of Health. However, those who are able to enter, Israelis and foreigners, if they have a certificate of vaccination, can enter Israel without going to home quarantine. And the idea is to have mutual recognition, and Israelis would be able to visit the other country without going into quarantine, and visitors would be able to enter Israel in the same way. We need to put in place the right technologies to do the verification of the certificate, or the authentication of the certificate, and making sure the person is the person. We know that there's already a black market for these certificates. We're having such discussions with quite a few countries. We have a principal public statement of understanding on this issue between Israel and Greece, and also with Cyprus, and with other countries we are into discussions. We'll be happy to share with you later on a few documents to the ambassador when they will be finalized, and when the last stages of finalizing a document which will present the concept. We are also involved in the international discussions on these issues, such as in the OECD and WHO, ICAO, sort of the whole world of which is combination of health and aviation. So this is on the issue of the aviation and the vaccine. If there are specific questions, if not, I'll move to. I was also requested to present a few issues regarding the vaccines and some of the ideas that the Israeli government is promoting, which were also raised during some of the high-level visits which took place in Israel in the last few weeks. So regarding the vaccines, we have seen that the world, when you come to the health crisis, a lot of countries were left to themselves, to their own, and we have to find a mechanism. At least we're looking at this as Israel. We have to find a mechanism to make sure that in cases of emergency, we have supplies and we can be in a way independent. So one effort is to establish a manufacturing site of vaccines, and this site needs to be from one side. It has to be able to supply the vaccines around the year, so and ready in case of emergency. Establishing such a site and for a small country as Israel is very costly and is not market oriented, because you need big numbers you need the scale to make the investment profitable and to have the returns. So establishing a manufacturing site of vaccines and probably also medicines needs a lot of investment, but it needs a big market, and this is why we are proposing to have partnerships with other countries who are also looking in the same direction, and to have some kind of a co-investment. It's not going to be, it will be an effort which is initiated by government and supported by government, but at the end of the day, it has to be oriented towards the market and to be independent and to make money. It needs to also be able to have some kind of an R&D capability in order to be able, in case of emergencies, to be able to get involved in the development of a vaccine to a certain extent, and then you have obviously the investment in the infrastructure, and being ready and giving some kind of a government assurance or a safety network in order to make sure that the company is really is there, and the government has to give a safety network, but it has to be oriented towards the market. So we're looking for international collaborations, international partnerships. It is still early stages. We need more work to do around this issue, but this is what we are proposing lately to some of the countries, and I have to say it's more relevant for the smaller countries and less relevant for bigger countries. Connected to that issue, we're also looking on establishing some kind of and this is again coming from the Prime Minister's office, some kind of an R&D, a mutual R&D fund, which will also do research around the corona, but mostly focusing also on the vaccination. So these are the two sort of issues that have to do with the investment. And we're also looking on how to create the capability of a country to have a regulator, a strong enough independent regulator, which will be able to give the regulation regarding the manufacturing of vaccines. It is a challenge. Obviously, in the EU, you have the EU system. But at least for us, this is a challenge. Another issue which is being discussed is the issue of the education system, and this is more, I would say, we have sort of discussions on the education system and how can we either develop or invest in a system where we'll make the education system safer. At least currently we don't have a vaccine for children and for pupils in schools, and we have to find a solution to make education system safer. So these are just a few issues which I wanted to share, and if there are any specific questions, I'll be happy to respond. I think I have 2 or 3 more minutes. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for your presentation, and we are really impressed by the results of vaccination in Israel. You are really the first probably country in the world moving so quickly and with such a good results. And of course, those mutually recognition agreements on vaccination certificates, are important for recovery of economy, especially for tourism sector. So we are also here discussing within the government. Of course, we are in the European Union, there are those common policies within the EU, then each country can also consider some additional parts. So we are now in the process of considering within the government. I think that we will come back to you with some concrete proposals. And of course, there are discussions within the other international organizations, OECD, WHO, and we are also participating quite actively. And thanks a lot for presenting a bit of this initiative on vaccines and this so-called first movers group, if I understood correctly. So here we are following really closely this initiative, and our Minister of Foreign Affairs and our Prime Minister, they are really interested in this initiative and would like to have more detailed information how it will be conducted, this group. And thanks a lot for these brief comments to have a bit first idea how it will work, and having a bit more detailed information. And our ambassador probably will contact you later to gather this information. We'll be considering joining also this initiative, and we would like that just to know the plans, how countries are going to share responsibilities, what resources are needed, and with which value proposition each country could come to that initiative. And regarding the Lithuanian side, from our side, if there is a decision to join, so Lithuania might be interested to the group partners in providing research and development services. Because we do have quite a good research R&D ecosystem here in Lithuania. I think that here we would be a good partner to the group. And when it comes to the development of production capacities, of course, every country would be keen to keep this production on its own land. That's normal, and that's probably, for every government to show these deliverables and results. But we would also be open to talk and consider various options on how to develop vaccine production capacities. And in this so-called PPP, public-private partnerships, here the first input from the government is very much important. And we have some private companies here, which already produce some reagents to vaccine, or some kits to vaccine, so we could talk with them. Or also consider developing capabilities within the medical institutions, our hospitals, laboratories that could conduct research and development, then production and clinical trials. So the 3 steps at once in the one place. So a lot, still for the time being, many questions, but I think that we will keep in touch with you later, and we'll see how we could cooperate in this respect. And here would bring those so-called concrete deliverables to our bilateral economic agenda and research and development and scientific agenda. So that would be my short comments in this respect. And And thanks a lot for brief presentation. And as I said, would need some more detailed information on this Mutual Research and Development Fund. And this will be, as I understood, for research and for research around Corona, but also focused on vaccination. So would need some more detailed information how it will be conducted and will operate it, and how countries come with their national inputs, and then how it will be distributed, those inputs. That really very important aspect of this initiative. And of course, regulatory side, yeah, that's quite a complicated issue. Here within the European Union, we have regulatory authorities, quite the strong ones, and yeah, that's the important aspect when it comes to vaccines and production and R&D. So thanks a lot, and let's keep in touch through our embassy or directly, just gathering more detailed information without occupying much time for these consultations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ilan, Dalia. We'll move to the second item. This on the COVID-19 and the following steps. Definitely, there's much more to come. And Ilan, who is the POC of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to all the COVID issues with the Ministry of Health, Transportation, and all other ministries, is at our disposal for these relations. Thank you very much, Ilan. We'll move to the second item, the FDI, and please, Lithuania, I think it's Sandra, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thanks a lot. And Sandra will put presentation, some slides to show you, and I'll comment briefly. Yes, so as I thought, we are really very much interested to attract more FDIs from Israel. And for the time being, Israeli investment in Lithuania reaches only 60 million euros, which puts Israel as a 26th country among the investors. So we need to improve these figures. And yes, I said we are expecting these numbers to rise. And Lithuania is offering really attractive investment environment for business. And let me just mention a few things Lithuanian government has done recently to improve the investment climate of Lithuania. So we have recently adopted a legislative package, so-called Green Corridor Bill, to establish even more competitive investment climate that is favorable for attracting and expanding sustainable and large-scale investment in Lithuania. And this package offers a number of significant tax incentives, and cutting red tape makes it quicker and easier for international business to establish. The goal is to keep improving Lithuania's investment climate, increase regional competitiveness, and attract large-scale manufacturing, data processing, internet server hosting services projects. So the investor has to sign a large-scale investment project contract with the Ministry of Economy and Innovation of Lithuania. So if the investor has a project, and if investor chooses Lithuania as a destination for the implementation of this project, and if the project meets certain criteria, then the investor can sign the agreement with the Ministry of Economy and Innovation of Lithuania to get those benefits coming from this Green Corridor Bill. So this contract binds the investor to achieve certain requirements over 5 years after it enters into force. It means that at least 150 new full-time jobs should be created if the investment is out of capital city. If the investment is in the capital city, Vilnius, then the number is 200 new full-time jobs. And then investors should invest at least 20 million euros of capex if the investment is out of the capital city, and if it is in the capital city, then the number is 30 million euros. And then investor that qualify as a large-scale project will gain the status of national significance. which means that in addition, a dedicated governmental project coordinator will establish smooth cooperation between investor and relevant institutions. So what we offer by this package? First of all, we offer zero corporate income tax for 20 years, then direct communication channel with the government, simplified planning requirements and faster decision-making from public authorities, leasing of state land, streamlined migration process for employees, tailored educational and training programs for the investor, no mandatory environmental assessment programs, and the project can be implemented in any region of Lithuania. Therefore, this incentive is important in promoting the development of the country's regions. So I would really encourage you to disseminate this information among your companies, large companies that are looking for the investment, that have investment projects and some new business development projects, and looking for foreign destinations for the implementation of these projects. And of course, we have agency Invest Lithuania that can provide very focused and targeted help to that particular company. The agency will partner with you, with that company, to get company's business set up and off, to set up and off to the best start possible. All the services of Invest Lithuania are free of charge, and we can make in decision to help in decision making, business establishment, business development. So many so-called support and services can be provided free of charge by Invest Lithuania. So we'll not go very much into details. This we will disseminate this information, the presentation via our colleagues in the embassy. Just to let you know that we have adopted such package, and if there are some companies that are looking for foreign countries for their business development plans, so please come to Lithuania and explore our investment conditions, and let's talk together how to help your business to expand internationally. And we do have very good examples coming from foreign countries. Let's say from the United States, we have some companies that 10 years ago established their manufacturing facilities here in Lithuania, and today they have their largest excellence centers for research and development, when they saw that there is a huge capacities here in Lithuania and possibilities and the workforce and the conditions for the investment. So that would be my short presentation of this package, and if you have some questions, would be ready to answer them.
I have a question.
Yes.
I want to know about if this Green Corridor program is include also state guarantees or some packages of loans from local banks.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for your question. We talked yesterday a bit. I checked with the Ministry of Economy and Innovation. Unfortunately, not. So the loans coming from the commercial banks and the financial side of the project, it's for the company to take care, because the government cannot give guarantees for the FDI projects, for the private FDI projects. So within this package, we do not provide guarantees for companies when it comes to the financial loans, to the credits and loans and all issues related to financial institutions.
Thank you. Eyal?
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for the Foreign Affairs Ministry for inviting us, and for the Lithuanian delegations. Also, we are very happy to establishing those
I know it's the vision of Yael and the whole foreign affairs for the economic diplomacy, and we are all here to doing so. 1 second, I will try to share my screen. Okay. Okay. So my name is Eyal Eliezer, and I'm the head of strategy for foreign investments in the government, in the Ministry of Economy, from the side of Invest in Israel. What I will try also today to speak about the potential between our countries, as we all said before, and also to speak a little bit about the tools that we can provide from our side. And it's from both sides. For example, we will be happy to help also to invest or to come from the other side into Lithuania, because it will help for the Israel economy to grow. And we are also always helping to our economic attaches that spread all over the world. So as Dalia, as you said before also, we can see already that we have lots of mutual interest in the sectors that are blooming in both of the countries, as you said, life science and cyber and automotive and etc. And we can see that we can have the establishments of the interests. In the last 10 years, our trade that have been increased more than 10 times, and it's amazing. And we can see that it just shows all of us that there is a potential, there is willingness, and although we are not we are two small countries and not neighbors, there is lots to do. And we can see also that there is already lots of bridges that have been established for potential economic ties in between the countries, and we are all just need to make sure that we are using them and that we are always adapting with times to see for the next stage. So Israel, as the startup nation, have more than 400 MNCs in Israel from all kinds of different sizes and from different industries. And we know as a government the importance of those companies. Each investor, each foreign investor, or each company that will come to Israel will get our full support, because we know how much they will bring back to the Israeli economy. And we know also that that's battlefield from all over the countries, just as Invest Lithuania is saying, and other countries all over the world. And that's exactly the reason why we established Invest in Israel, to be a facilitator, an integrator between all the different entities inside the Israeli government, and also from the business side of Israel, the business sector, to make sure that we will help and to, for example, to explain and to understand the possibilities or the regulation bureaucracy barriers, that the foreign investors seeing when he's coming into Israel. Our deal flow, I'm sure it's quite similar to yours. Everything is on data and capabilities in the end, and research. We will do marketing all over the world, and then we will have our specialists for foreign investors to help them and guide them throughout the maze of how to establish an investment in a foreign country, and aftercare services that we are providing. And the reason that I want to touch in all those aspects is because as we are giving those tools for the private investors, it's also for the country's capabilities. For example, we have a round table of foreign investors, for the foreign economic attaches that are sitting here in Israel. And we are always trying to understand what is their needs, or for example, how their economic attaché act during this trigger year of the COVID-19, and to try to help them sometimes to learn from their colleagues that here in Israel, and to try to understand how we can be here for them. So in our economics research capabilities, we are looking also outside of Israel for different countries all over the world, but also we will be looking inside the Israel business environment and the Israeli industries capabilities to make sure to have the right matching for the investors. We will be the professional advisors with all, as I said, there are lots of entities in this arena to help to understand what should be the next reforms in Israel. And for example, in the last 2 years, we jumped in the ease of doing business index in 20 places, just for the reasons to make sure that it will be easier for foreign investors to come into Israel. Those are a list of things that we can provide. And Yael said what should be the next action items. I think it's a meeting. We are doing a lot of surveys between countries for the potential, the economic potentials, to understand exactly after these 15 minutes of conversation of today, to understand exactly how we can help and what is the needs or the wants of the wish list of the both sides, and to make sure that we will get there. And to start with small quick wins, and then to establish the relationships to a bigger and bigger joint project together. In our marketing materials, I'm sure as you are doing your marketing all over the social media and conferences in regular years, or in the digital conferences, and so on. And we also we are trying to bring to Israel companies when we are targeting our audience, for production, because Israel is already known as the startup nation for technologies, and it doesn't need our help of the government, but in manufacturing, we want to increase our programs and our doings. We will try to bring those companies to the peripheral areas, and of course, companies, investments that will bring more and more employment into the country. We can provide you all the data that you need already. Everything is already ready, as we said, and also about the business environment, as we said, and also specific sectors, what is already happening in Israel, all kinds of business models for R&D and for innovations and others. Those are the things that interest us, that we think that Israel have a value also to bring outside, and everything can be provided to you. We know that the databases in the end is the thing that we are working our strategy on. The fact is that when we start to have all kinds of different leads for foreign investors, we will give them special investor relations that will help them throughout all the way, from scouting from the other sides and RFIs, actual matchmaking for potential investments, and throughout the investments, we will make sure to take them hand by hand in the Israeli bureaucracy, and to make sure that they will get all the benefits and grants that they are entitled to. As I said, those are the sectors and islands of excellency that we are seeing and have specialists that will help you. Of course, not only them, but that's a partial list. And when you will come with your company or with your investors, we will make sure to point in to give him the right man to the job. We will try our strategy. There is 3 ways to do that, 3 vectors of a way that we are working throughout. One is, of course, expansion of companies that are already here in Israel. Let's see how we can make them bigger. The second one is to see companies that are already in Israel, but mainly in R&D, as I said before, technologies and so on, to make sure to see how we can take them to the next level of manufacturing. And the third one is companies that are not in Israel, and we are bringing them to greenfield. In the end, I will show you some success stories about those companies also. And we are doing that not only in invest in Israel with our capabilities, as we said, but there is a full potential, a full package from the Israeli government. Dalia, as you showed it before, we are also have actually with the same principles of investments, of grants for the investors. It can be in the tax or in industrials R&D programs regarding the size of the investments, of course, regarding the employments. All of those are different grants and benefits, and they are, of course, more for different, it can be for different sectors that we in Israel want to increase. All of those, and of course the data, if you would like exactly the numbers, I can send it later on. And of course the Israeli economy, that it speaks by itself. Also we can see it, but the way that we are still capable of letting the economy keep the wheels going inside this difficult year of the coronavirus. Those are things that we know already. And our last pillar is actually we are not stopping only when we are bringing in the investors, but also we will support him in the day life. As we said before, we integrator for all the Israeli government entities, and we will make sure that when there is an obstacle that the company, the manufacturing investor, we will face in, we will know how to reach to those clerks and to make sure that the problems or the solution will be solved quickly as possible, of course. And the thing that I like the most is actually those kinds of conversations and the follow-ups that we will have later on, to hear from the field what is your needs. Because all I said until now, those are things that I know that can help you. I know that usually the foreign investors are looking for, but I don't know what I don't know. And if we want to go to the next steps in 5 years and 10 years, we need to hear from the field and from you what is your wish list, and we are here to provide it. And that's the whole story of what we are doing here. Between our success stories, you can see countries that companies that came here when they are thinking if to go to the US or to Israel or to go to Singapore or to Israel, and we will be able to give them the grants or even sometimes an additional grants above the ones that we are already know to provide, because it's It's a mission of all of us. As you can see through, you will see also throughout this day. That's why we are here to bring those things. You can feel free to contact us, and I'm sure that we will sit together later on. That is everything from me. Thank you very much.
So thanks, Eyal, for such a comprehensive presentation and presenting us how Invest in Israel agency operates. And happy to see that when it comes to sectors, to incentives, we are on the same page. So we are also looking at the same sectors. We are also providing almost the same incentives. And from this point of view, so Invest in Lithuania and Invest in Israeli, so those two agencies are kind of competitors. And that's good to be competitors. The competition keeps us dynamic and lets us move much more quickly. So we are competitors, but on the other side, it does not mean that we cannot find some mutual interest. So you mentioned that you are doing this economic research and business intelligence. And of course, you are concentrating on Israel, the biggest probably activities, if I understood correctly. But you also mentioned that you're also looking a bit in the foreign countries. So I would encourage you to look a bit in this part of the world and to examine what kind of possibilities we do have here in Lithuania. And then probably you will find some companies to attract into Israeli, or some new ideas how we could cooperate. And you mentioned that the Israeli startup nation, completely agree with this. And while started building our startup ecosystem here in Lithuania, it was a bit more than 10 years ago. So it was exactly namely based on Israeli experience. So this is already, I would say, concrete deliverable that here in Lithuania, we also have quite flourishing startups and quite a good and attractive startup ecosystem. And thanks to the good example and advice coming from your country. So that's concrete deliverable. And now let's look how to match those startups, how to make them accelerate their ideas in one another country and to attract capital to invest into these ideas. So thanks a lot, and come to Lithuania as well. And in ease of doing business, Lithuania is at 11th place. So so thank you so much, and let's probably continue on the next item on the agenda.
Dalia, before we move on, first I would like to thank Eyal for the presentation, and to thank you, Dalia, for the presentation and comments. I would like to look at the potential as complementary potential. And to try to think on how to bring our ecosystems closer, how to bring our startupists and entrepreneurs community closer. And maybe one of the initiatives could be a virtual meeting on approaches, on programs, on incentives, and to try to analyze where do we complement each other and can establish collaboration. So this is my 2 cents comment for this session. Thank you so very much. It was really eye-opening.
I have to say that the business is always cannot be from one side. There are both sides. So even if I invest in Israel, I cannot work only from one side, so it's completely complementary.
Yeah, I also completely agree on this proposal, and let's put the first item on the follow-up to make this virtual meeting on approaching our ecosystems and focusing, let's say, on startups. And in several sectors, fintech or life sciences or whatever sectors we would find interesting for both sides. And then we will put a task for our embassy to to make it in the nearest future. So good idea. So fully accepted.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dalia. Thank you very much, Eyal. We'll move to the next item led by the Lithuanian side, the NGEU. I'll just add a remark that since the Resilience and Recovery Fund under the NGEU acronym was initiated 6 months ago, we have been following it closely, and we have already started negotiations and dialogues with different countries within the EU in order to offer innovative solutions for the investments dedicated to medicine, telemedicine, digitalization, healthcare, agriculture, water, under the Green Deal and digitalization priorities of the NGEU. We would also like to hear from you what are your plans and whether there are areas in which we can work together. So I'll give you the microphone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So yes, I'll present you briefly where we are with our recovery and resilience plan. So despite the fact that Lithuania was among the least economically affected countries in the EU during the pandemic, our business still faces a huge challenge to recover from this crisis. And a very important tool to help repair the immediate economic and social damage is Next Generation EU instrument. And of course, this recovery and resilience facility, the centerpiece of the Next Generation EU to support reforms and investments undertaken by the EU countries. And recovery and resilience allocations for Lithuania, as you may know, amounts to 2.2 billion euros. So quite a huge, quite a big amount of money for in comparing to our economy. And right now, our government focus is on the preparation of the recovery and resilience plan. And of course, with intensive consultations with the European Commission's task force are ongoing for the time being. We are a bit late with our recovery and resilience plans, and this is due to the parliamentary election process that we had at the end of the last year. So when you know it very well, when there is a change in political cycles, so things a bit move in a slower pace. That's why we are now a bit probably comparing to other European countries a bit late, but it's almost in the final phase, in the final stage. And I think that by the end of this month, we will have already this plan completed. So a couple of words on this procedural side and on the substance of the plan. As I said, currently governments, we have this. First of all, on these programming documents, we have here in this overarching programming document, National Progress Plan. That's the most important long-term programming document. And this National Progress Plan is being aligned with the government's 4 years action plan for the time being, and of course, with a special emphasis on structural reforms. And here, those 2.2 billion euros in the form of grants from the EU Recovery and Resilience Facility will be available for Lithuania. So while putting this resilience and recovery facility into use here in Lithuania, we are working on the basis of 7 broad components encompassing following areas. First of all, of course, green and digital transition, being in the center of government's program implementation plan, then healthcare, social issues, science and innovation, education, public administration, and business environment. And here, looking at those areas where the biggest amount of money will be put from this recovery and resilience plan, we see that the biggest potential for cooperation with foreign countries and of course with Israel lies in green and digital transition, healthcare. You rightly mentioned telemedicine, digitalization of the healthcare system. The innovative solutions from your country would be more than welcome. And of course, science and innovation, building science and innovation ecosystem, and then implementing already concrete projects. So, as I mentioned, we are expecting to complete our recovery and resilience plan by the end of March. And notwithstanding the fact that the national programming documents are still being prepared, so I would like to mention a couple of sectors where with a bit more in details, those couple of sectors where we would see potential cooperation with Israeli partner. And as I mentioned, green transition would be one of the most probably important area where we could find mutually interesting projects. And a couple of remarks regarding possible cooperation areas related to green transition, namely in developing energy innovation. And then afterwards, for the third item, we will talk on healthcare, on life sciences. I think that also will be quite interesting opportunities. So coming back to the cooperation in energy sector. Our government's top priority for the energy sector are two top priorities. So first of all, as I said, green transformation, and the other one is energy security. And we want to build up more sustainable and more efficient and more energy efficient economy. And in this respect, we set ambitious goals for renewable energy. This is for this sustainable and energy efficient economy. And also we are implementing important infrastructure projects. This is for energy security side. Coming to the green transformation, so green transformation goes together with energy innovation, and we see the future of Lithuania as a regional hub for energy technologies and innovation. Israel is known for its strong orientation to innovation and technologies, high-tech startup, as it was mentioned before, and therefore we are open for cooperation and, as Ambassador Lina mentioned in his introductory remarks, co-creation in energy field. So to become more sustainable and energy efficient, our government raises ambitious goals for renewable energy development. So to continue this so-called green transition, converting to clean energy sources by the year 2050. That's really very ambitious goal. And it will definitely require enormous efforts, and sometimes we will need to adopt new and non-traditional methods. Non-traditional, I mean innovative methods. And here, cooperating with your country would really make sense. So, possibilities for foreign companies in renewable energy. We have extensive experience in developing solar energy, biomass, and biofuel solutions. Lithuania might be interesting to Israel in terms of development of small-scale renewable energy, and our experience in the regulation and development of small-scale solar power plants for residential houses might be interesting to Israeli partners. Coming to wind energy, our goal is to develop offshore wind in the most efficient and competitive way. And this will also be an opportunity to attract world-class investors. So for these offshore wind parks, there will be international bids, international tenders, and we will invite foreign companies, and of course Israeli companies are also welcome to present their bids for these international tenders, and tenders are planned to be prepared by 2023. Looking at the future trends on energy innovation, Lithuanian government started also focusing on the identification of future trends in this innovative side, and these are energy market integration, distributed generation, smart grids, as you mentioned, digitalization of utilities, data-driven business models, storage solutions, batteries, hydrogen technologies, automation and artificial intelligence will be used how to make our energy sector more competitive. And these areas definitely open up opportunities for cooperation. What we do to make our energy sector as an innovative one. Last year, Lithuania's government approved 10 years action plan for strengthening energy innovation ecosystem. And as part of this plan, we adopted a new legal environment, so-called regulatory sandbox for testing innovative energy products and services under the real condition in Lithuanian energy systems. It aims, the aim is to enable energy innovators to improve their solutions and commercialize them later. So this regulatory sandbox is open not only for innovative solutions developed in Lithuania, but also for foreign countries, for foreign companies, which have some interesting innovative solutions in energy sector. They might come to Lithuania to test them, because you know, to apply innovative solution directly is not so easy. First of all, you have to test it, and here you will be able to test it in the real conditions, so to see whether your solution is viable or not. Then, as they talked a bit, consulted with our Ministry of Energy, they would see the biggest probably potential for cooperation, bilateral cooperation in developing hydrogen technologies, which is now very much flying very well, these hydrogen technologies. So here in Lithuania, we established a hydrogen platform at the very end of last year, and the Ministry of Energy and around 20 other organizations signed an agreement to cooperate in the creation and development of hydrogen technologies, which will be crucial for achieving energy and climate targets. And there will definitely be interesting projects for foreign investors. There will be international tenders, and I think that we should make some afterwards follow-up meetings, and I would encourage your ambassador very much to come to see our minister, to make a visit to the Ministry of Energy, to see Minister of Energy, and to get all information in which bids, in which international tenders Israeli companies could participate and could be interested. And just to finish on this energy side, I would like to mention that we have already some common projects in this field in hydrogen technology sector. Smart Energy Fund managed by Ignitis Group. Ignitis Group is the Lithuanian-based international energy company. It's our state-owned enterprise, the main state-owned energy enterprise. So this Smart Energy Fund, operated by Ignitis Group, has invested in Israel-based company H2 Pro, and it develops innovative and green hydrogen production technology that produces 30% more hydrogen than traditional electrolyzers. So we do have already quite a good, let's say, first example in the hydrogen technology sector. Let's continue. Let's gather information from both sides and to see whether we could have more important projects in this respect. And very, very short remark on transport sector. I know that your ambassador had already visited already Minister of Transportation and talked on possible cooperation areas. And the Ministry of Transport is also planning to create this so-called regulatory sandbox for testing innovative solutions in transport sector. And here, once again, the knowledge, expertise, and the know-how of Israel in this respect are most than welcome. So let's continue working on this, gathering information, and see how we could expand our cooperation in transport, applying innovation in transport sector. And here again, I have a very good example of one Lithuanian company, which is called Elinta Charge, and which together with its Israeli partner, Zoko Enterprises, is installing city charge public charging stations in Israel. So we do have some quite interesting and good examples of cooperation in both sectors. Let's continue working and looking for more concrete deliverables on both sides, as was mentioned by AI, that investments should go on both sides. That would be my short introductory remarks on this EU generation recovery and resilience plans and some possible areas for cooperation. But what I would suggest for your ambassador to visit each ministry of health, once again, ministry probably of transportation, whenever the plan is completed, then ministry of economy and innovation, and to try to gather those most important projects and areas where international tenders will be put in place, and that might be interesting for Israeli investors, for Israeli companies. So that would be short introductory remarks, and if you have some questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Dalia. First of all, thank you for this really broad presentation of your program, which we really envy, the 4-year plan. I think what we have to do is to drill down, to zoom in into these subjects, because when we speak of energy or medicine or any of these fields, they are so broad and they cover so many sub-issues, sub-items, whether it's energy. So energy might be also something that has to do with communications or cyber or whatever. So as you suggested at the end of your remarks, perhaps really our embassy in Vilnius will meet with the corresponding task force and the ministries in order to really understand the plans and see, and we on our end here in Israel will look for the governmental expertise and private companies to see how we can collaborate. By the way, the collaboration, and this covers all of the discussion today. One of the things we can also do is not only think of enhancing and boosting our bilateral relations, but also how we can work together toward third countries. Your innovation ecosystem is also very advanced in fintech and other issues as it is here, and we can work together towards third countries. But back to the NGU, the Recovery and Relief Fund, I think this is a great, maybe the second action item, to meet with the people and to learn to study the program, and we can have a really specific, pinpointed, targeted follow-up with us on our end, with the embassy and with your people. Thank you.
Yes, completely agree with you. We will not cover everything, so let's try to pick up those most prominent areas for cooperation where mutual interest exists, and then let's dig deeper into this and see how we could move forward. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we are 10 minutes ahead of time. So if there are no more questions or remarks, we'll take a coffee break, and we'll be back in 15 minutes. No, we have until, coffee break, until 11:40. So we have 20 minutes. Okay, we'll leave the Zoom muted, and we'll see you in 20 minutes. Thank you very much.
Great, okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have the Innovation Authority at the other side of the coffee break.
Very good, thanks a lot. See
Thank you.
Then. ambasadorė, pagaliau tave pamatė.
Nu, tu įsivaizduoji, palauk, pasitilinsiu. Labai kažkas su mano kamera, tai aš dabar bandau prisijungti per telefoną, žinai, kas yra visai nepatogu, bet...
Bet gerai dabar, matosi, žinau, gerai.
Nes, nu, vat kaip tyčia, supranti, čia ir Arūnas bandė, ir visi bandėm, ir niekas, aš jūs puikiausiai matau, pas mane kamera juoda, ir čia jungiam, išjungiam.
Nu, gal užklijuota su pleistru.
Nu, ne,
Gal Arūnas su pleistru užklijavo specialiai ir nesako tau.
Nu, žinai, jeigu kas ir užklijavo, tai bijau, kad ne Arūnas. Yra čia, jeigu jau klijuoja, tai rimtesnės struktūros.
Yra kitų.
Tikrai neklijavau, galiu pasakyti atsakingai.
Ai, negaliu.
Nu, tai gerai.
Bet man atrodo, ambasadorė reikia nuo kompiuterio atsijungti, nes gal tas aidas yra, kadangi per 2 kanalus prisijungus, ar ne?
Bet žinai, man aš per telefoną nieko nematau. Aš pasitilinsiu, aš vis tiek praktiškai nešneku, tai aš, žinai, išsimutinsiu ir...
Tai turiu minti, tada kompiuterį užsimutinti reikia.
Jisai užmutintas kompiuteris. Mano čia tik telefonas dabar neužmutintas.
Gerai.
Nu, tai važiuosiu šiandiengi po pietų pas jau mano tuos draugus. Tai žiūrėsim.
Tai ten reikia, bet jis dabar ten truputėlį gražiai, biškai labai trumpai papasakojo, bet žinai, kas labai įdomu pasiklausti, kaip jie mato tą bendradarbiavimą gamybos rytyje. Sako, mes norėsim partnerships with foreign countries, ne? Ir co-investments kartu. Tai va, tu pasiklaus, kaip jie mato tas partnerystės su užsienio šalimis. Ir aš supratau, kad jie duos vyriausybės paramą pradžioj, galbūt tai bus visiškai ir vyriausybės pinigais inicijuota investicija, gal bus ten PPP, gal 50, tai nežinau, pasiklausinė, kaip jie, kiek vyriausybė, Izrael, tarkim, jų šalies vyriausybė dės pinigų į konkretų, tarkim, vakcinų gamybos facility. Ir va tada mes matysim, kiek ar deda visiškai pilnai ir tik po to parduos, žinai, išvystę biznį parduos, nes jų tikslas, kaip sakė, the end of the day, vis tiek padaryti, atiduoti private. Nu, valstybė negali laikyti tokių, žinai, dalykų. Bet pradžiai turbūt niekas, žinai, tuos būsimus vakcinų, sakykime, tyrimus, būsimų vakcinų, niekas taip jau lengvai biznį irgi tų pinigų nededa, čia reikia valstybės paramos. Tai va šitas labai įdomu, kaip jie mato tas partnerystės su užsienio šalimis, investuojant į gamybą. Žinai, kokiom dalimis, kiek vyriausybė pasiruošų dėti pinigų, ar tai bus purely vyriausybės projektas iš pradžių ir tik po to biznis, ar darys kartu, kokiu procentu, jeigu turėtų tai visus tokius aspektus. O kitas dar tada tas jau fondas R&D, irgi labai įdomu, kaip tas fondas veiktų. Nu gerai, visi susimetam pinigų, ne? Tada klausimas, ar metamės tiek, kiek po lygiai, ar metamės tiek, kiek viena šalis galim. Ir va tada kaip tuos pinigus dėliojam, kaip tuos tyrimus darom, kaip dalinamės tą tyrimų, sakykime, tyrimų veiklas. Ar po lygiai tada tyrimus darom, ar kažkur dalinamės, jeigu viena šalis stipresnė viename tyrimo, gal, sakykime, aspekte, tai daro vieną tyrimą, kitą, ir taip toliau. Šitas labai įdomu. Concept of proof, žinai, concept of activity ir operation šito fondo. Nu ir dar paklausęs, jis minėjo tą regulatory side. Tai vat kažkaip, žinai, sako, jūs ES turi tą regulatory authorities, okei, viską mes čia turim. Jie sako, pas mus biškis sudėtingiau, tai tu irgi pasiklaus, ką jie turi mintyvę tą regulatory side ir ar pas juos nėra tos, žinai, reguliavimo agentūros stiprios, ar jie neturi kas patvirtina, va čia tas įdomu.
Jie neturi kas patvirtina, pas juos yra, matai, jie tam, kad vakciną taikytų, jie laukia arba amerikonų, ten to drugs, kaip ten jie vadinasi, jo, arba ES. Ir kai vieni arba kiti patvirtina, tada jie pas save viską tą, žinai, implementuoja, bet savo tokios institucijos, kuri nacionalinių lygmenių pasako, mes padarėm tyrimus, tinka, diegiam, jie šito neturi. Va, pavyzdžiui, dabar problema su vaikais, jie nori skiepyti vaikus, bet nėra dar tyrimų ir jie laukia, kol arba Amerika, arba ES, arba, žinai, kažkas patvirtins, kad vaikus galima skiepyti. Tai va čia jie apie šitą kalbą.
Nu tai va, tai irgi tada įdomu, vat kaip jie matytų šitą problemos tada sprendimą, gal jie, sakykime, tą tyrimus padarai Europos Sąjungoje, gauni proof, patvirtinimą, o tada jau gal jie tada gamybą pas save labiau laikytų, o tą research and development activities gal čia europinėse šalyse, vat, tokius visokius, žinai, bandom klausinėtis, bekalbant atsiras gal visokių dar papildomų klausimų ir dar paprašysim Donato tada, kad nueitų, žinai, pas jau iniciatyvos iniciatorių.
Jo, pas Anuką, kaip irgi jį vadina, šitą kursą. Tai aš manau, kad būtinai reikia, nes jau jie ten labai įsivaizduoja, kad čia jų iniciatyva ir čia jie yra pagrindiniai. Tai aš manau, matai, jeigu vienas Izraelis ir nuspręstų, vis tiek reikia, kad mus palaikytų ir kitos šalis. Tai šitoj vietoje, aš manau, reikia jų ten neužgauti ir neįžeisti, kad mes be jų, žinai, nieko nedarom, tai va šitoj vietoje būtinai, kad jisai nueitų gerai. O aš
kad domimės, kad renkamės info ir žiūrėsim, tada dažnai svarstysim. Aš suprantu, ten, žinai, reikia atnešti biškį daugiau mėsos, papasakot, kas čia tokio yra, nes negali taip eiti aklai ir jungtis, tai natūralu, kad...
Okay. Are we ready to resume our dialogue?
Yes, we've been talking a bit with Ambassador, sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get anywhere, nothing, I didn't understand it.
But you had a chance to listen to a very beautiful Lithuanian language.
It is beautiful, yeah. Yossi, did you study any Lithuanian?
Very little.
Okay.
A little, yes.
A little. Okay, so we'll resume. And we'll resume with the representative, the director of the European Department at the Israel Innovation Authority, Mrs. Neta Gruber-Perry, which will share with us the pilot program of the IIA, Israel Innovation Authority. Neta, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for an interesting conversation up until now. What I'll do, Gil, is I'll share a little bit about the Israel Innovation Authority and our international collaboration programs, and then we can, what is of interest to you. So you can see my slide deck. Yes. You don't hear me well?
Ken, Roy, we can see, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just a sec. Why is this stuck? There we go. So we were talking about this extensively, so I won't get into too much detail about Israel's accomplishments in the innovation sphere. We view ourselves as a global leader, and there are some global indexes that strengthen this understanding. And high tech is our immense growth engine for the Israeli economy. Almost half of our total export, 13% of our GDP. Many, well, not enough, but we want to include more and more employees in these high tech sectors. And 2019 has been a record-breaking year for us. Obviously, 2020 was a challenging and unusual, and we still don't have the full data. But I'll say in a second a word about what we, the Israel Innovation Authority, been doing during 2020 to try and keep up the activity at the high tech sector. So here you can see some digits about the R&D, which is what we focus mostly about, the R&D expenditure, which has grown, exits, new multinational centers, private capital investments, some information about that. Most of that activity, as you can imagine, is actually taking place in the private sector. So what is the role we see the government is in charge of within this ecosystem? It's complementing the private sector. So we don't want to lead the private market. We want to enable it to grow and to increase the financial value of the Israeli innovation. and to ensure that we are leading going forward. So what we at the Israel Innovation Authority mostly focus on is removing obstacles where necessary, be it in legislation or creating infrastructure, creating collaboration, seeing where there are some what is called death valleys and how to overcome them, addressing market failures, the places where the private market is failing to provide the necessary support for innovation, especially in strategic areas where we see national importance. And you've touched upon many of these, and we share your view about climate tech, energy, health, infrastructure, mobility, manufacturing, and so forth. So these are areas that we share, and others as well, together with you. And to establish new growth engines, this means trying to look, being futuristic, looking at where the future is taking us and how we can strengthen these areas and ensure our leadership in these areas in the world. So in a brief, an overview of what the Israel Innovation Authority is, so you have the context. So again, our mission is to promote innovation and leverage inclusive and sustainable financial growth. We do that mostly by injecting funds, but we have a variety of other activities. I'll get into that in a second. So $1 billion per year. We are currently waiting for our annual budget to be approved. As you mentioned earlier, the political situation is also causing some delays in Israel, as in Lithuania, and hopefully the budget will be released soon. But once it is, then what we do is we provide a variety of funding tools to companies, starting from a single entrepreneur all the way up to large companies in Israel. And what we focus on is mostly R&D activity and piloting, because these are where we see the two, as I mentioned before, death valleys. First in initial stages of R&D, and then second in scaling products into the market. So we have about 3,000 submissions of applications for funding projects per year. Actually, during 2020, we had 4,000 applications. This was due to the fact that we opened a fast track, which was aimed at promoting solutions to COVID-related challenges, and B, supporting companies. And this is what I said earlier, that we are doing a lot of work to support Israeli innovation ecosystem. Internally, we don't have the EU funds for that, but we have our own resources that we are investing, and we helped more than 300 companies in the past year overcome. These are good companies, promising companies who faced unusual challenges, and we wanted to make sure that they managed to survive this crisis. So we take, as I said, a bottom-up approach. This means that we don't want to lead the industry. We want the industry to lead us where it's interested to go. And we support projects as long as they are, excellent projects, both on the technological aspect and the business aspect. We have about 140 employees of the Israel Innovation Authority evaluators. And this means that each project which is being submitted to us for review is assigned an expert technology evaluator with more than 20 years industry experience in most cases. And this evaluator is doing very rigorous due diligence review of this project. And this is another added value that we are able to provide to our partners, because they can be sure that the companies that they are collaborating with are excellent companies with excellent projects, because we only approve, as it says here, about 38% of the applications per year. The way we work is that we provide conditional loans. Most of our loans are given in a matching basis, so up to 50%, in some cases more than 50% support. But the idea is that the company is never fully dependent on public funding, but it's actually, able to secure additional resources. It's a profit-oriented company. And once it succeeds, hopefully it succeeds in commercializing its products, it will be repaying royalties to us. If it didn't succeed, then we share the risk and they won't need to pay us back. So this is kind of a little bit about the way we operate. How about our international collaboration tools, which is what we are gathered here for? So obviously, and this has been mentioned in various conversations here throughout the day, we view international collaboration as highly important. We know that the companies in Israel are seeking offer a variety of funding tools. One of these is so some of them are based on R&D and others on piloting. So R&D is, we have a variety of bilateral agreements with partners, and we issue usually joint calls, usually once a year with partners. And we can, you discussed earlier this fund that is going to be established for energy, but there could be other topics that we tackle. Most of these bilateral calls are sector agnostic, again, because it depends on what sort of interest we find in the industry, and we can do some business development activity to kind of support companies in their interactions and kind of finding the right partners. We also provide funding through the Eureka program. So I assume Lithuania is also part of the Eureka network. This is an innovation platform that enables collaboration in a variety of forms, and we are taking part in it, obviously. And again, I'll just say it, and once we have our budget approved, but let's assume it has been approved, and then going forward, then we can be active, again, based on the Eureka network. And this is something that we can discuss, how we can for these sort of projects. And then also, as Gil mentioned, pilots. This is actually rather new for us because we used to focus solely on R&D, and then later on realized that there was interest and there was a need for support in later stages of development and piloting and actually scaling. So what we do there is that we collaborate both with public entities such as municipalities or other or hospitals or other relevant partners that could offer this beta site and support for Israeli companies to test their innovative technologies within these with these partners, obviously based on the interest of these partners. And the idea is to create a win-win, and we provide funding to the Israeli companies for this pilot project, and our partners are expected to provide in-kind support. It varies according to the sector, but the idea is that they are able to provide actual value to the Israeli company. So if you're interested in absorbing Israeli innovation in Lithuania in a variety of fields, then this could be relevant. And then we also do that with multinational companies, the same idea. So a multinational company that we see value in connecting it to Israeli startups, then we have the sort of MOU signed, and then we enable Israeli companies to perform either R&D or piloting programs to something that could be relevant. Another thing is in an earlier TRL stage, technology collaborations between academia and technology, academia and industry in technology transfer and knowledge transfer, and we have a variety of programs that engage this sort of earlier stage, either early stage research or where academia has already had its IP patented and it's interested to commercialize it together with the industry partners. This is also something that we engage in. And of course, Horizon Europe, and you discussed earlier the Green Deal and energy related activity. So there is a body called ESERD, which is kind of a close, it's not exactly the Israel Innovation Authority, but it's a close ally. It's kind of a part, sort of a part of the Israeli Innovation Authority, and it's in charge of helping Israeli companies collaborate with partners as part of the Horizon programs. So there are many relevant open calls for collaborations and opportunities for consortia creating, and there we can again do some joint activity to connect the relevant partners from Israel and Lithuania, also together with other countries if relevant, and to really create these projects and submit them to funding through Horizon. So that's another opportunity. And last but not least, and there are many other things that we do, I'm just sharing kind of a small taste of it. We have technology incubators for early stage companies in Israel, and we invite international partners to take part in these in a variety of sectors. So this is also something that could be interesting for Lithuanian entities interested to really kind of tap into early stage Israeli innovation. So this is kind of an overview of some of the activities that we carry out. I'll stop my share, and I'm happy to, doesn't have to be now, I think it could be later on, be in touch and discuss further specific opportunities for collaboration to get in with the support of the foreign ministry and so forth. And if you have any specific questions now, I'm also happy to take them.
I would like to ask, if I may, Netta.
Yes.
It might sound a bit practical. If a Lithuanian team works on a startup together with Israeli team, or he finds Israeli partner, does he have the right to apply to the assistance and to support of the Authority of Innovation in Israel as an Israeli team?
That's a good question. So we we support our target audience is Israeli companies. So let's say there is a joint effort of Israeli and Lithuanian, either two companies, or I don't know if you're discussing like this, it's the same company that is established by both partners of both countries, or these are two companies collaborating. And in any case, if the company is registered in Israel and it holds Israeli IP, it is eligible to apply to us. And there are, as I said, a variety of funding tracks that could be relevant according to their stage, their interest, and their sector, and so forth. And the way we work with the bilateral programs, and this is where we would need the right Lithuanian partner, is that with our bilateral programs, the Israeli company applies to us, and the Lithuanian applies to to our equivalents, our partners in Lithuania, and the Israeli company would receive funding from us, and the partner would receive funding from Lithuania, and then they would be able to carry out this joint pilot, R&D project together. If we're talking about a pilot project, there, as I said earlier, we are not expecting funding from the Lithuanian side, but rather in-kind support. So in-kind can be, access to specific facilities, to expertise, to a database, having a dedicated staff person, supporting the project. It can vary according to the specific project. But as long as the companies eligible to apply to us are Israeli companies with registered Israeli IP, and if they are interested to share and create joint IP together with, with a partner in a joint R&D project, then they are able to then share this new IP that was created. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Netta, a lot for such an informative presentation of Israeli Innovation Agency. And yes, I do agree that we should probably start thinking on how to make connect our appropriate institutions, your agency and Lithuania's Innovation Agency. And here, once again, we will not start from zero. We had already some kind of some cooperation, bilateral agreement, and as I do remember well, in 2012, Lithuanian Agency for Science, Innovation and Technology had signed a cooperation agreement with, at that time, Israeli Industry Center for R&D. And later, if I understood correctly, this Israeli Center for R&D, Matimap, was merged and reorganized to Israeli Innovation Agency. And we here in Lithuania, we are also, for the time being, we are in the process of reorganization of our innovation ecosystem and our institutions within this innovation ecosystem. And in the nearest future, Lithuanian Agency for Science, Innovation and Technology will be also reorganized. And then I think that we should look to make those two agencies together, to bring and to see whether we could have another new agreement, a mutual agreement for cooperation, bilateral agreement between those two agencies, and to put appropriate funding from one another part, and then to see how we could move forward with common projects, as you mentioned, in these directions, as funding through these bilateral calls, then funding through Eureka program. That's a bit probably different part of funding, and then especially these pilot projects. That's really interesting. And yeah, if I understood correctly, there will not be a concrete financial support for the idea, but as you mentioned, this so in kind support. Just a quick question: whether the foreign partner could apply for this? If I am a foreign partner and would like to test some idea and so on, could I apply for this pilot project support, or should I have my counterpart in Israel to make to be eligible for this support?
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, you're first of all, you're right. The Israel Innovation Authority was established in 2016, and before that it was Matimop and the Chief Scientist Office. So any agreement that was signed with these two former legal entities was then forwarded on to the Israel Innovation Authority, and it should be still relevant, and we could work on its basis. So once you are as you said, ready with the right partner, we would be happy to discuss directly and to see how we can reestablish these ties. This is related to the first part of your comment, and then second about your question about the pilot project. So in a sense, if I could say, the bilateral program is more balanced. It has two partners on each side, each one getting funding from its respective a funding authority, and it's more balanced. With the pilot projects, we are taking a somewhat more, I would say, like Israel-oriented approach, and what we want is to enable the Israeli companies to pilot their projects abroad. Obviously, the idea is to create win-win and to have these innovative technologies contribute to the foreign partner, but the short answer is that only the Israeli company is able to apply to us. The foreign partner, what they can do is they can reach out and to me, and we can, if it's relevant and interesting, we can include them in our call and offer Israeli startups to collaborate with them. I'll give you a very specific, concrete example. A big municipality in Lithuania, or an energy plant, anything that could offer is interested to host Israeli startups to experiment their relevant innovative technologies, could reach out to me or to my colleagues and then be included in our pilot programs.
Great.
So, and this
Thanks.
doesn't even need to be through, you know, it can be an independent body. It doesn't have to be through a
the
more
bilateral
broad-
agreement.
Exactly.
Great. Okay, thanks a lot. And then a couple of words regarding our cooperation within the Horizon 2020 program. Just to mention that Israel was number 12 among Lithuania's partners in Horizon 2020 program with 42 joint projects. So I think that we should continue this cooperation in the new Horizon Europe program. And the first call I expected to be open around it's already open, I think, or not yet.
Not at the end of April.
At the end of April.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's keep this dynamic, cooperating within this Horizon Europe program. And I see that you mentioned your areas, priority areas during your presentation. So we are once again on the same page, and we're also focusing on digital solutions for health and care, especially cybersecurity. I think Israel is very, very strong, has very strong experience and expertise in cybersecurity issues. So that would be one of the most promising areas for cooperation, space, energy, climate solutions, and many more. You mentioned Eureka program as well. So let's look how to continue cooperating. And then one more, just to mention also that we do have already quite good cooperation in accelerating our startups. And I think that here we should also continue putting our efforts in letting our startups to accelerate their ideas. And just to mention that Lithuanian startups took part in the first accelerator program in Israel in 2018. The Start Haifa accelerator program has brought more than 25 professionals to work with the representatives of Lithuanian innovative business, and we would be happy to continue the cooperation in accelerator programs. So I think that is there within your agency who is in charge of, or there are some different frameworks of institutional cooperation regarding the accelerator programs? But here I would see also the potential for continuation of our relations. But no need to answer today, but just right now, but we can just keep in touch a bit later.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Netta. I think if we concluded this item, Dalia, the mic is yours on the Baltics bio event, Life Sciences Baltics 2021.
Yeah, so this is our most favorite topic, and I think that one of the most promising area for cooperation with Israel. And I will present briefly this key event, Life Sciences Baltic 2021. Just to say you that the idea to organize this Life Sciences Baltic conference in Lithuania came namely and once again from Israel, when more than 10 years ago, a minister of economy went to Israel for the bilateral visit and visited Biomed conference. And then the idea came, why not make something similar in Lithuania? And then we cooperated a lot with the partners from Israeli, and Israeli partners helped us to organize our first events of the conference. And now we are moving and moving further with these events, and this Life Science Baltic conference in the region is one of the biggest and most promising events. So just a bit short introductory remark and connections that have been made some time ago. So this is concrete deliverable, once again, coming from cooperation with your country. Just to mention that, yes, our life sciences sector in one of the fastest growing in Europe, our annual growth within the biotechnology and pharmaceutical research and production sector is around 25%, and sector is regarded as one of the most developed in the Central Central European part. And what are the Lithuania's life sciences sector's value proposition? So value proposition is focused on two sides. On manufacturing side, this is the generic drugs, biologics, and medical technologies. So those medical devices and all technologies used in medical sector. And the other part of our value proposition is research and development cooperation. So we are looking very much for cooperation with foreign partners in application of data analytics and AI competencies in digital health, laser tech applications in devices and diagnostics, as we talked a bit already earlier. So, as I mentioned, we see life sciences as the most promising sector for economic cooperation with Israel. And for the time being, in Lithuania, we have around 100 life sciences companies that operates in our country. We have quite a few big names like Thermo Fisher Scientific, Hollister, Intersurgical, and we do have one of the largest players from Israel, Teva company, a global pharmaceutical leader and the world's largest manufacturer of generic drugs, but only one company. So we would like to have a bit much more investments in this respect from Israel. And for Israeli life sciences companies, Lithuania offers convenient access to the EU market and developed ecosystem, and with which main competencies lies on cell and gene therapy, on proteins, on pharma, drug delivery, medtech, including 3D printing, sensors, and engineering. And we have some interesting examples in cells and gene therapies. The subsector has emerged in recent years here in Lithuania, with the most businesses having strong ties with Vilnius University Life Sciences Center. As I mentioned, this ecosystem, scientific ecosystem, is well developed in Lithuania, and the cluster includes very innovative startup CAS-ZIM, a startup established by Lithuanian professor Virginijus Šikšnys, and who received international acclaim and was awarded for pioneering research in gene editing technology. So we could also continue collaborating in this respect with Israeli partners. As I also mentioned, life sciences startups are flourishing in Lithuania. We do have interesting and promising startups in this respect, and the startups of life sciences sector make up about 40% of the whole sector. So startups ensure the growth of Lithuania's R&D potential, generate high added value for economy, and of course increase the potential for attracting foreign investments. And I think that those startups might be interesting for venture capital funds coming from your country. So one more area, as we talked a bit earlier, for cooperation, laser technology industries. So also has a significant global market share. So we are proud to say that every 10 scientific laser used in the world is produced in Lithuania, and clients and partners of Lithuanian laser manufacturers also include such kind of international institutions like Nuclear Research Center in Israel. So continuous industry growth reached 20% per year. That also the area for cooperation with
Madam Director, can you repeat the startups in science technologies on life
sciences?
40% of what?
Of the whole life sciences sector. I mean that from the whole companies that operates in Lithuania, 40% in the life sciences sector, 40% are startups.
Okay, I understand.
Now I am talking about life sciences sector, yeah.
Okay.
And a couple of words regarding how we responded to COVID-19 pandemic. So when this pandemic started, Lithuanian biotechnology sector was quick to adjust, and more than 60 companies reoriented their production and started developing and manufacturing new and innovative products for protection against the virus. So, for example, biotech company Intersurgical started producing modern and effective respirators for Lithuanian medics. Then Lithuanian company Teltonika launched the production of the prototypes of the lung ventilation machines. Another Lithuanian company, LT Biotech, created and started testing a kit which allows to identify the virus in real time. And Elegant Tech company, Lithuanian also company, used the 3D technology to manufacture the testing brushes for COVID-19 smears. So we do really have interesting examples how companies reacted to the pandemic, transformed their activities. Or for example, one biotechnology startup called Lab Group LT is developing a prototype COVID-19 vaccine in collaboration with Imperial College in London. So these are just a few examples how we reacted to this pandemic. And I think that when we talked on this First Movers group and how to continue working further and facing this pandemic situation with which we will be probably living ready forever. So I think that we could cooperate and see how to make research and development in the vaccine part or in other areas of life sciences sector. So as I mentioned, the key event in this sector is Life Sciences Baltic Conference, and this year the event will be held on September 2024 in Vilnius. And this is the biggest virtual life sciences forum in the Baltics. It gathers global biotechnology, pharmaceutical and medical devices, leaders from the Baltics and beyond. And this year, unfortunately, it will be fully digital, so pandemic conditions still do not allow us to make it in-person event. This year event will focus on 6 topics. These topics will be the following: digital health, gene editing and applications, microbiome and health, early drug discovery and clinical development, the perspectives of personalized medicine in practice, and emerging technologies for medicine. So the event with many experiences, there will be international conference, then virtual exhibition, startup masterclasses and networking opportunities. There will also be a special COVID-19 session, pre-scheduled B2B virtual meetings, exhibition is being held in virtual booths, national stands of several countries have been confirmed. Here, I mean, Italy, Belgium, and Austria have already confirmed their national stands, so we might also Israeli partners and the stakeholders of this sector to think about it. And as the COVID-19 pandemic is becoming a significant topic in life sciences industry, we aim to organize an additional panel discussion on the management of the COVID-19 situation in different countries. So here we would like to hear about the successful case of Israel of effective and rapid process of vaccination. So we would like to invite top epidemiologists that are making the nationwide decisions or policy officials to this event to present the management of this situation. And our embassy will get in touch with the appropriate stakeholders in Israel. And I also ask Ambassador Levy or for you also to cooperate and to help us and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to help us to find the appropriate persons, the best fit for this panel to present Israeli experience, how your country managed COVID-19 situation. And then, as we talked at the beginning, that we do need real deliverables. We do need matchmaking our companies to make those B2B meetings and so on. So I would also ask your help and support in inviting Israeli companies to participate in this Life Sciences Baltic events. And here I have a list of companies, concrete companies that we would like to have be present during the Life Sciences Baltic Conference. So these companies would be EIO Biomedical, BGN Technologies, Axelta, Compugen, and Neurogenic. We'll provide the list by our embassy in Israel will provide you the list, and we will provide you, Ambassador Yossi Levy, the list of these companies. So would be really grateful if you could help us for your intermediation to get in touch with these companies and to invite them to be present during our Life Sciences Baltic event in the next September. And we would also like to see some associated structures, other stakeholders to be present in our event, like, for example, Israel Advanced Technology Industries, Federation of Israel Societies for Experimental Biology, Israeli Association of Endocrinology, Society for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, the Israel Society for Neuroscience, and Pharmaceutical Society of Israel. So the list quite long one, but I think
we'll be happy to assist also from here from the ministry once we get the list, and perhaps we can find other relevant companies and institutions, and perhaps also the academia. So just send us the information and we'll assist your embassy in Tel Aviv.
Thank you so much. The embassy will contact you directly with the list of companies and the associated structures. And yes, please complete the list and would be happy to see more proposals from your side. So thank you very much. And that would be my introductory remarks regarding cooperation in life sciences sector. So let's move forward. Very good beginning and quite really good results, but not stop here. And let's try to make more concrete deliverables. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think this session adds a lot of weight to the potential collaboration. So Yossi, let's follow up on this conference in September and to take necessary steps. Just check that it is not on the high holidays in Israel, which September is quite, it's a holiday season, so we will look at the dates as well. And we'll be glad to follow up on this. It takes us to our last session, and that is about economic diplomacy. And I will make it very brief, just to share what we are focusing on and some recent efforts that we set on our 2021 agenda. And to put some questions that can be elaborated in a follow-up session. And that is first the coronavirus and the economic crisis put a lot of weight and emphasis on assisting the Israeli industry to open new markets for export and for trade. So we look at ways to intensify our role, the role of our embassies abroad, to identify opportunities and to upgrade our skills in market development and how to approach in a better manner our economic business ecosystem in order to serve the maximum public value we can add to the Israeli economy. So this is one point. Second, as Ilan very nicely elaborated in the first session we held, everything related to corona diplomacy, which means establishing collaboration frameworks with countries, with the idea of creating a production capacity in Israel for production of vaccines, what kind of engagement we can have with like-minded countries who might serve either as markets or as partners to such an initiative, everything related to the opening the skies, aviation, flights, what should be the code of conduct, what kind of agreements should we set with countries. So this grew up to be a major part of our economic diplomacy focus. Adding to that, we ask ourselves, how do we measure our practices, our efforts? Last year we launched a pilot project with 15 embassies all over the globe to measure our inputs and our outcomes of the economic diplomacy. We were positively surprised with the good information it provides us on where do we put our efforts as an analytic tool to plan our next year working plan. This year we are about to implement it with all our embassies. This is still an interesting exercise. We have a lot to learn, so I'm curious whether you have a similar measuring approach and method that we can learn from you. The third that I would like to put on the table is recruitment and training. We are a relatively small Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We recruit our cadets. The cadet course is the main and only entry gate to the service, but we recruit people with different skills to one main, or I can say two main routes. One is the political diplomacy, and the second one is administrative functions of diplomacy, which is the consular services and administration, etc. And along the way, we train our people to be able to do multiple tasks and multiple expertise with multiple language skills. Because we are small, we need to have flexible way of directing and benefiting from the manpower resources. But having said that, we see that economic diplomacy requires special knowledge, special skills, special training. And I wonder, how do you handle with this, the new challenges that economic diplomacy brings, the new opportunities, and how to assure that our manpower is well skilled and trained to talk the language, to do the work, and to fulfill the mission of maximizing public value in economic diplomacy. So these are the three challenges that I will put on the table. The list is far longer, but let's start our discussion on this with those three. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this introduction. And yeah, I think that we are once again on the same page, talking about our economic diplomacy, about overall diplomacy. As you mentioned, Lithuania, we are also a small country. Our diplomatic service is not a big one, so multitasking is probably our main characteristic. We have also this diplomatic staff, we have administrative staff, and the recruiting is on the same in the same principle as in your country. There is one path for recruiting for diplomats and another path for recruiting administrative services. Yeah, so, and you mentioned that you have this measuring tool, how you measure your efforts, your inputs of your activities in the embassy. Would be very much interested to hear this measurement. Maybe we will learn something interesting, and we could adapt to our system. But now I will very briefly present how we understand economic diplomacy and how we handle it and how we cooperate with other institutions. Because I think that economic diplomacy is not intended to be implemented by MFAs and other public sectors institutions only. It is obviously an overarching framework for actions of all interested parties. That means government, business, as well as companies themselves. And all these partners, they make a team of the country. And here in Lithuania, we are trying to build this so-called Team Lithuania. So Team Team Lithuania in the capital, working with all stakeholders, and Team Lithuania abroad, the embassies and the team that is posted abroad within the embassies. So just could you please back on the first slide, just to tell you that in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so department which is in charge of economic diplomacy is our department, External Economic Relations and Economic Security Policy Department. So we have 4 divisions. We have Trade Policy Division. This is EU Trade Agenda. Then we have International Economic Organization Division, WTO, OECD, and any other international economic organization. We have Export, Investment, and Promotion Division. So Sandra here is with me, the heart of this division. That is this bilateral economic relations. And of course, we have one more also very large and important topic, economic security policy. And these are essential economic security interests. So this is within our ministry how we handle economic diplomacy. And then let's go to the second slide. Here you see with how many partners we cooperate. In the middle, you see we have Economic Diplomacy Council. This is the intergovernmental body which gathers around the table all line ministries. We call them economic ministries: Ministry of Economy and Innovation, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Agriculture, and Ministry of Science and Education. And the Economic Diplomacy Council is chaired by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is kind of coordinator. So this Economic Diplomacy Council also invites, and we invite together the largest business associations and science, technology, and innovation stakeholders, that everyone would be around the table and to talk what are our economic interests, what are sectors we would like to promote, what we would like to do in terms of export promotion, in FDI attraction, in tourism policy area, as well as science, technology, and innovation. And then to which foreign directions we would like it to go. And of course, according these interests, then we formulate tasks for our embassies. And we have 53 bilateral diplomatic representations abroad. Here we have diplomats posted in the embassies, but alongside diplomats, we have also those special attaché. We have commercial attaché, we have agriculture attaché, transport, customs, and energy. And we try to make this so-called Team Lithuania abroad, with the embassy and ambassador as a coordinator of the activities. And as I said, Team Lithuania in the capital, trying to gather all relevant stakeholders to speak together and to identify our economic interests. So that is the framework where we cooperate. And of course, in this framework, there are a lot of cooperation, but at the same time, there are a lot of competition, and especially competition between the line ministries, and which one is the better, which one has the best representatives abroad, and so on. But I think it's life. We are all human beings, and this competition there is, and there will be forever. But I think if we have mindset of co-creation, of cooperation, then we always have to find those common solutions and common interests. So that's how we are navigating among those stakeholders, and for the time being, I think that we are quite successful. So then let's move on the second slide we have? Second, yeah. This is just to show you that we are also putting a lot of emphasis in keeping relations with our science, technology, and innovation stakeholders, with scientific institutions, with companies, with the ministries who are shaping the science and technology policies. And we have created, within this Economic Diplomacy Council, we have created this so-called Science, Technology, and Innovation Network, Advisory Network. It's an informal network. Whenever we need some information, we gather all those stakeholders together and talk on horizontal issues, such kind of science, technology, and innovation, global trends, national priorities. Then, of course, we sometimes, if we need some advice from science and scientific institutions regarding the relations with our foreign partners on bilateral, regional, or multilateral formats, and that's really useful network to have and to keep contacts whenever is needed. Then what I would like also to tell you that we created this so-called electronic tool, how to manage this information and how to manage so many stakeholders here in Lithuania and quite numerous representatives abroad, because in the embassy we have diplomats posted abroad. We have also, as I mentioned, special attaché posted by different institutions. And here, what is important? It's important that every team would work together. Not every institution that sends a representative abroad could work on this separate, let's say, separate way without collaborating together. The idea is to bring all institutions working together abroad and working together in the capital. And so we created this IT tool to manage information, which helps us to manage information, to prepare, to identify priorities of our economic diplomacy, to prepare concrete tasks for each embassy, and then to get the report, the feedback on the implementation of this concrete task. And everything goes through this IT tool, which led us to see the activities, the scope of the activities, and which is very important to keep track records, that whenever there is a change in personnel and in diplomatic service, as you may know it very well, we are moving constantly. So this IT tool helps us to keep information. So how it works?
Dalia,
yes.
Did you develop this IT tool by yourself in-house, especially for the MFA, or did you buy any on the shelf on the market?
We started to develop it in-house with our own IT people, and now we are in a situation when we decided that we have to upgrade it. We have to upgrade it. We have to make it user-friendly. We have to make it according to the latest IT technologies, and we prepared the public tender, and now we started this public tender, and I think that within let's say 1 or 2 years we will have this tool modernized, upgraded, and that will be much more user-friendly. But for the time being here, we have this IT tool, the SharePoint platform, which works quite well, of course, with some problems from time to time, because all IT tools, they are not perfect. But yeah, it lets us to make this coordination much more easier. And how it works? So let's say, starting from each year, we gather information on economic priorities from our stakeholders, line ministries, business, companies. Then Sandra's division, they are based on this information. We prepare concrete economic activity action plans for each embassy, and the tailor-made action plan for concrete embassy according to the priority. if there is no priority, if there is no interest coming from business from those so-called line ministries, so we do not invent it. But we see in some cases, in some embassies, the priority list is very long one, and that helps us to identify destinations where we need to reinforce our personnel, where we need to double resources, and so on. So then, based on this information, we prepare those economic activity action plans. We put those economic activity action plans in our database in this electronic tool. And we prepare these action plans together with the embassies, of course, in coordination with the embassies. And then the embassy having this action plan, there are some very concrete tasks and the stakeholders here in Lithuania with which they have to collaborate while implementing this task. Then when implemented, the embassy report on this tool, the result of this task, and then we see how it goes, what kind of activities embassy made during the year, and so on. And as I said, it helps us to keep those track records of activities. And for the new people coming to the embassy, they are connected to the tool and they see what have been done by his or her predecessor during his term. So I think that is quite useful instrument. Yeah, we'll need it to be modernized, but quite a good instrument. And still we are raising the question how to make this measurement, how to measure the value added of our diplomatic service activities, because it's really difficult. So you help companies, you help business to internationalize, but then it's so difficult to measure to what percentage your support and advice helped company to implement, let's say, its project. We are a bit in a search how to measure it. But if you would have some ideas, you mentioned that you measure your activities, your input, so maybe we could get some interesting ideas from your side. So that would be my presentation, how we understand economic diplomacy and how our framework works in capital and in our embassies abroad.
Thank you very much, Dalia. This is an eye-opening discussion for me. First question, Team Lithuania. You showed that diagram, and it seems that it exists chaired by ministerial level, right?
You mean in the embassy or in the capital?
No. You had a diagram showing the structure of Team Lithuania that combines several ministries who deal with different realms of economic diplomacy. Mm-hmm. All are subordinated to the Minister of Foreign Affairs when it comes to economic diplomacy, right?
I wouldn't say that they are subordinated. I would say that we are partners on equal level partners. So we gather, as I mentioned, in Economic Diplomacy Council, which is created and chaired by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as you see in the middle. But all ministries within this Economic Diplomacy Council, we are partners. We are on the equal side. Just that one of the ministries should be kind of coordinator. So as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in many aspects, we are like, as I always joke, like doctor generalists, you know. So we have to know everything and sometimes to coordinate all activities. So the idea was that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is a coordinator, and other ministries are partners, but they are not there is no kind of subordination. This is the partnership that when we go abroad.
And the meetings of this council are held in what frequency?
So we have Economic Diplomacy Council at the ministers level. Ministers gather at least once in a quarter, once in a 3 months, let's say, or sometimes once in a 6 months. It depends on the topics on the agenda. But then we have another level of gathering at the vice ministers level. So this is Economic Diplomacy Council Working Group. And at this level, we gather much more during the year, because there are some operational issues to discuss on the representations abroad, on let's say whether we should establish new representatives in one or another destination, on some concrete projects, on some concrete, let's say, events in Lithuania or abroad. And at this level, at vice ministers level, we gather, I would say, I don't know, every 2 months, I think, yeah, to discuss those operational issues. And then
do you have an annual combined plan?
Annual, sorry, didn't catch your...
Annual plan? Annual combined plan?
Annual combined plan. You mean this within...
Annual. For the year 2021, did you convene and set a joint annual plan for the year to come?
Within this Economic Diplomacy Council, we do not have such a special or specific annual combined plan. Here we gather, we discuss on our priorities, economic diplomacy priorities for the year, but this is not kind of annual combined plan. Based on these priorities, then we formulate concrete tasks for one or another embassy. That's the concept of working.
I see. So thank you very much. This is very helpful and inspiring. I will be glad to, if you could share this presentation with us, yes, because there are definitely some ideas, Yossi, I think we should bring back home and and see what could be implementable in our case. And on measuring, what we measure at this point of time is our inputs and our products, but still it is very vague and challenging to measure success. What would be considered a success, and what exactly do you measure? So we are not there yet. It is clear to me, after over 2 years of analyzing how to approach the challenge, that this is a gradual process. And it takes a lot of effort, and it needs to have support from the leadership of the ministry to engage our teams into measuring. Nobody likes this. It's a very specific work. So it's not only about what you measure, but what is the method? How do you make it user-friendly? Not threatening. You are not punishing people for the results. So there is a whole psychological dimension. Gil, to my right, he's the one who leads this effort. And I hope that by the mid of the year, we will have some more, we will be in advanced stage of launching and implementing first 2 quarters of the year. And then maybe around September, we can hold another round where we can share our experiences.
Would be glad to see. Yeah.
And again, I'm very modest. I mean, this is a very challenging way to go. But we will be glad to share with you our dilemmas, our failures, and our achievements.
Very good. So we'll be glad really to know and to see. And I think that by the next part of the year, maybe we will be able to meet in person. So we would be more than happy to welcome you here in Lithuania, and very much keen to come to Israel as well. So let's hope that the conditions will allow us to meet in person. Yeah, and would be really very much interested to see this, your measurement concept and the first results, how it goes. Yeah.
Thank you. Obviously, you're most welcome, and we all hope that soon we will be able to meet physically. I think we can proceed to the closing remarks. So I will ask you to start.
Yes, so by closing, just to say thank you really much for this opportunity to discuss bilateral economic relations between our countries. So we agreed on both sides that great potential of cooperation lies in high-tech sectors with Israel. From our side, of course, life sciences and innovative sectors could be the greatest value for both countries. And what I mentioned as a list, but I put as a list to do. So if I am not correct, please correct me. This is, first of all, to bring our ecosystems, innovation ecosystems closer and together on a virtual event of our ministries, appropriate ministries and agencies. Then to study recovery and resilience plan in order to identify concrete areas for cooperation. Then we would be very much interested to gather a bit more detailed information on this first movers group vaccine initiative, especially on manufacturing side, on the concept of partnerships with the foreign countries, co-investment and what part of the government support you envisage and so on. Then on this mutual research and development fund on vaccines, the concept of these activities and the regulatory side. Then the fourth point on my agenda is, of course, life sciences Baltics event and to have the Israeli side participation and the final, let's continue working on this economic diplomacy framework, on measurement, on interinstitutional cooperation, and try to make these consultations regularly, twice a year, let's say.
Why not? Thank you very much. I will ask Gil to refer to the action items to follow up, and I suggest that we will close with a few sentences of our ambassadors.
Okay, so actually I was writing throughout the meeting this morning, the dialogue, 4 action items, and it's redundant for me to repeat them because you just summarized the exactly 4 points: the COVID-19, the NGEU, the Innovation Authority, and the Baltics. So we're on the same page. I think we left some work to the embassies in Tel Aviv and in Vilnius, but at least I see Yossi very happy to continue on that plan.
Lina is also happy, I see.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm very much waiting forward to the elections in order to know who the new ministers are and then be able to go and meet them as Yossi is planning to do. So we'll definitely do our best here and work hard in order our plans to be realized. So maybe not in 100%, but we will try to really work hard on it.
Thank you. Yossi?
As told before, I'm very happy that we had this session. I would like to thank all participants, those who organized and those who shared us with their wisdom and experience and good tips. Both economies are very sophisticated. That's why it is a bit challenging to find the matching points. It's not the old economies. We are both leaning on high-tech productivity and thought. And I do share Director Dalia's ideas and what Lina said and others about the necessity to find very much precisely pointed cooperation. It is possible. I would be very happy if in the coming weeks or months we will try to focus on 3 to 5 fields of precise interest and try to present it to the participants. I do share the 4 points kind of action plan presented here by Director Dalia and by Ambassador Arzieli. We have some frustration that so far we did not have this breakthrough in increasing our commerce, but I do believe that thanks to such sessions, we will do it better and find partnerships from both sides, either in startups or in bids, governmental bids, or in other trilateral projects which are very much possible. So once again, thank you so much, and I do hope that the economy will be upper in the common agenda.
Okay.
So thank you so very much. And I'm looking forward for our next meeting, hopefully physical one. And blessings for good health to you all.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
the
and
same.
Thank you very
bye,
much.
and hope to
Thank
see
you
you
very
in
much.
Lithuania for the next meeting. Bye.
Viso gero.
Ko gero.
Bye. Bye, Lina. Nice to see you. Bye, Yael, Gil. תודה.